Hey everyone, this is my helicopter prototype. You may have seen me post it on Twitter or talk about it in various places. So this is meant to be a quick prototype. I'm not intending, this isn't specifically the next thing I'm working on or anything like that. The idea here was just to build something new and kind of different and have a little bit of a break from what I was working on with Sunday Rivals, and to try out something in a short period of time and release it early enough so that people could play it and give me an idea of what they thought and understand whether or not this is something to continue with. The plan here is for me to finish this by July 1st. So today is the 28th of May. This is a relatively short timeline for developing a game, but we shouldn't think about this as a game. It's more of a prototype, similar to the way the Rivals prototype was. So you can play it, you get a feel for it, understand what I'm making, and we can decide whether or not it's worth doing. So what you're looking at right now is about 5 days worth of work, mostly focused on controls and presentation. Presentation in this type of game is kind of super dependent on the gameplay. So right now the helicopter is mostly centered on the screen. I do some camera adjustments to kind of exaggerate the directional flying, but the helicopter now rotates based on what direction you're going, and I'm playing with the gamepad right now. It works fine with the mouse. I need to do some mouse smoothing and stuff like that, but for the most part, it's fine. Keyboard, mouse, and gamepad feels pretty close. So I was focusing on the controls and getting the animation of the helicopter working, which feels pretty good right now. This is generally the movement speed and the presentation angle that I'm happy with the camera and things, which the last couple of days I've been focusing on aiming, because obviously shooting's a big part of this helicopter combat game that I'm making here. So right now I have this little reticle in the middle of the screen, or near the middle of the screen, that points to where you're going to shoot, and you can fire away. You can see that the HUD is hooked up to some of the info, so like you can see your when you fire around, it changes and stuff like that. It took me a little while to understand exactly how I wanted shooting to work, because you can fly around and shoot like this. This gets a little bit inaccurate when you fly around. What I ended up doing was creating a system that worked on snapping, and you see these little orange diamonds pop up. When you reticle over a target close enough, you will see that the diamond pops up, and when you're firing forward, it fires, but when the diamond pops up, it then kind of auto locks on it. And that's similar to something like aim assist in a first-person shooter. And it's a nice to have feature in terms of shooting, especially I assume when combat gets really hectic and things are flying at you, it'll be hard to really aim. So this gives you a nice little ability to be a little bit more accurate. And then I decided to take that a step further. So when you have the little diamond icon on, like you do here, if you hold down the left trigger, it switches to lock mode. And then once it's locked, you can easily rotate around something without losing aim. And then it doesn't matter where your reticle really is. You continue to aim. And you can easily jump in and out of lock on a thing. And that, of course, the locking stuff is not perfect yet. And you can see there's an issue when you get super close. It kind of freaks out the camera and stuff. So I gotta figure that one out. But I really like the way the system works. I think it really makes playing this a lot more fun. And again, this is an arcade game. Like most things I make, it is not meant to be like a hard simulation. This is not a hard helicopter simulator or anything by that means. It's still more of an action game. If you're familiar with the Strike series, which is an older kind of 16-bit early PlayStation series, this game is akin to something like that. So that's kind of where I have settled on the combat. What I'm working now on is I have things broken out into weekly tasks. So I continue to build out. I'm going to start working on the enemies and stuff, and start figuring out how they're going to operate. This map is obviously very early, or should be obvious that it's very early. This is built entirely with modular art pieces. So you can kind of see that there's these little squares of trees, and I plop down little squares of trees and build out maps this way, which is a really fun way for me to work. And if you've seen some of this stuff that I've posted online, you can make pretty detailed spaces out of it. Here's a good view of a singular asset kind of tile piece right here, and then a little base tile piece. and a helicopter on top that you can shoot at, which is awesome. This map size feels pretty good. You can see the edges of the map right now. I think the time it takes to fly from one end to the next feels about right with the speed that you can fly at. And I'm still working on whether or not I want to do a singular vertical plane that you're always flying at, or whether or not you can change altitude. Like right now, you can change altitude. You can go higher or lower. When you go too high, it creates issues for understanding where your aim is, and it gets a little weird. I built this obstacle course over here, so there are obstacles that you could fly over, like so. But for the most part, I have some basic collision in, and you can bump into stuff and eventually damage your helicopter. But if you're a little bit more nimble, you can fly between things. And in general, I like the way this controls, so I'm pretty happy with it. But I have not settled yet on whether or not you'll be able to fly most of the missions at different altitudes yet. You would be able to like fly to your base or wherever you need to go and be able to drop down. So that would be some sort of mechanic that would have to be built. But right now you just kind of bounce off the ground. The interesting thing I want to show real quick. First of all, I've made a real menu, not the... If you played Sunday Rivals, some people really dislike the cursor menu. This is just a regular menu that works with the mouse and the controller, and you just select buttons. So if you're excited about that, yay. When you jump back into the game, you will notice that you have control of this little guy down here. This is the pilot, or he is inside of a pilot's body, and the body is a vehicle, just like the helicopter is a vehicle. So your player is just an invisible entity on the map, and he can essentially, jump into any body at any time and fly and control it. And the human body, the pilot body, controls like a helicopter right now, which is why he's so clunky. But the idea is that eventually, in some capacity, you would be able to get out of the vehicle and run around and maybe do on-foot combat type missions, see how that goes. But here's your little guy running around, and then you run up to a vehicle and hop in it and fly off. And that all works really well. And then just like the best tip I can give someone is when you're starting out on a project, you want to build out as many of the systems that you think you may need later on that are kind of low, that are still low overhead while you're working on them before things get too heavy and it becomes a pain. So for instance, I've built a free cam in here now, while everything's still light, so it can do things like screenshots and fly around the map, and just makes life a little bit easier to build this stuff in and account for it early on rather than later when it's impossible because you're trying to juggle so many systems that you didn't plan for. And this is a close-up of the little model, totally not a little bird at all. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. This is a lot of fun to make, and it's actually decently fun to play for me, I think. So I think other people will like it. So I'm excited to share it at some point. There's not much of a game here, obviously. It's very prototype. But I can see in the next couple of weeks getting some general mission flow in and starting to feel like a game, and then we can decide where it's going to go. That's all I have. This has been fun to do. This is just regular talking devlog. I didn't write a script or anything like that. So I'm just talking over gameplay and recording in OBS, which is very different from what I normally do. So who knows what the quality will be like? We'll find out. Anyway, that's it. Join again. I'll try to do another one of these in a week, and I'll advertise it, and you guys should jump in and check it out. Let me know what you think, and I will talk to you soon.